Every day, billions of people take medicine without asking where it was actually made. Most assume it comes from a nearby pharmaceutical company. In reality, every tablet, capsule, and injection depends on a global network of chemical plants, active pharmaceutical ingredient manufacturers, sterile production facilities, quality laboratories, ports, cargo aircraft, container ships, and regulatory agencies spread across multiple continents. This documentary explores how modern medicine is really produced, why pharmaceutical supply chains have become globally interconnected, and what happens when even one critical link fails. A prescription bottle on a local pharmacy counter represents the final domestic step of an otherwise invisible global chain. Before any medicine is dispensed, it begins as a series of raw petrochemicals and bulk minerals, typically sourced from industrial chemical suppliers, often based thousands of miles away. These raw precursors travel to specialized synthesis facilities to become the active pharmaceutical ingredient, or API, the actual biologically active molecule that treats the illness. From there, the bulk API is shipped to formulation plants, where it is combined with inactive binders and pressed into tablets or processed into sterile liquids. The finished doses are then routed to packaging facilities, sealed into tamper-evident blister packs, and sold to international wholesalers. These distributors manage the coordinated logistics of shipping and temperature-controlled storage before the medicine eventually enters regional warehouses and local pharmacies where patients receive them. What appears to be a local healthcare transaction is the endpoint of a highly specialized, transcontinental industrial system that operates continuously across multiple borders, oceans, and regulatory jurisdictions. Every single dose relies on this precise, sequential handoff, where an interruption at any stage halts the entire flow. The active pharmaceutical ingredient, or API, is the specific chemical compound that gives a drug its therapeutic effect. In modern manufacturing, this essential molecule is rarely produced in the same facility, or even the same country, as the final pill. Instead, specialized chemical plants synthesize bulk API in industrial batches, dividing the production process across oceans long before a medicine is packaged. Food and Drug Administration registry data reveals that only 4% of active ingredient facilities are located in the United States. This concentration makes the API plant the unseen engine of the entire system. If a single production line halts due to a safety violation or power failure, the disruption radiates outward, starving multiple downstream formulation plants of the raw molecules they require to finish the medicine. India produces approximately half of the generic finished medicines used in the United States, cementing its role as the global pharmacy for off-patent drugs. Yet this massive formulation capacity relies on an upstream partner. Indian manufacturers depend on China for nearly 80% of their raw active pharmaceutical ingredients and chemical precursors. For essential therapies like antibiotics, China produces an estimated 90% of the global supply of key starting materials. According to the World Health Organization and the Food and Drug Administration, this dual-nation concentration forms the central pillar of the global medicine network. Because the system is geographically clustered, any localized factory closure, export restriction, or trade dispute in Asia instantly ripples outward. A disruption at a single chemical industrial park cascades through Indian formulation plants, ultimately threatening the stability of prescription supplies in clinics and pharmacies thousands of miles away. Unlike an electronics factory, a pharmaceutical plant cannot simply reboot its machinery and resume output after a malfunction. Under current good manufacturing practice regulations, the production process is legally inseparable from the chemical product itself. Every batch must undergo rigorous laboratory testing for identity, potency, impurities, and sterility before a single dose can be released. Process controls, cleaning validations, and continuous documentation are not optional adjustments. They are core components of the medicine itself. In sterile manufacturing, there are no shortcuts. When an inspector finds a compliance failure under FDA or European Medicines Agency standards, production stops immediately. Reclaiming a compromised sterile environment demands thorough decontamination, clean room requalification, and the validation of successive trial batches. This recovery process regularly consumes 3 to 6 months. Because the global regulatory system structurally prioritizes safety over industrial speed, a single procedural mistake can remove a critical facility from the global supply network for half a year. In April 2020, the Food and Drug Administration Drug Shortage Database registered a critical entry. Propofol injection, the cornerstone sedative for patients on ventilators, had officially gone into shortage. This industrial failure was triggered by a sudden spike in pandemic demand colliding with pre-existing supply vulnerabilities. A subsequent FDA warning letter to a major domestic manufacturing facility in California revealed significant contamination and environmental monitoring failures in its sterile production lines, forcing immediate suspension of manufacturing. Because 70% of the raw chemical ingredients for propofol originate in China and India, local lockdowns and shipping delays prevented alternative suppliers from closing the gap. The physical consequence of this supply breakdown immediately reached the clinical floor. One hospital pharmacist recalled the daily pressure. We had to ration our remaining vials, switching patients to alternative sedatives that increased the risk of prolonged recovery times. For patients, these disruptions had immediate health outcomes. An oncologist described the systemic strain. When sterile injectables are unavailable, we are forced to delay chemotherapy cycles or redesign entire treatment protocols, compromising patient outcomes. What began as a compliance failure at a single factory quickly became a crisis of care inside intensive care units, showing how quickly industrial instability becomes a direct threat to human survival. Consider a standard capsule of generic amoxicillin dispensed at a local pharmacy. To trace this single dose backward is to map a complex global relay. Before it reached the shelf, the finished capsule sat in a temperature-controlled domestic warehouse, having arrived at a United States port inside a refrigerated 40-foot shipping container. That container spent weeks crossing the ocean, sent from a packaging and formulation plant in Gujarat, India. In those Indian facilities, workers granulated the antibiotic powder, compressed it into tablets, and sealed them into blister packs. Yet the active molecules themselves did not originate in India. The raw amoxicillin base was synthesized thousands of miles away in industrial chemical reactors located in China, then shipped to India as bulk cargo. Every additional border crossed and every physical handoff between chemical synthesis, formulation, and packaging inserts another fragile link where the entire chain can break. Even when factories operate perfectly, the physical transit of medicine remains hostage to geography and geopolitics. A single maritime bottleneck, such as the Suez Canal or the Strait of Hormuz, can delay medical cargo by weeks, driving container rate surcharges up by 40%. Aside from shipping lanes, trade policy has become an active barrier. Since 2025, United States tariffs have imposed 25% duties on Chinese active ingredients, forcing a structural recalculation of supply costs. In response, states are treating medicine supply as an issue of national security rather than commercial trade. The United States Congress passed the Biosecure Act to restrict contracts with foreign biotechnology firms of concern, while the European Union earmarked €1 billion to build domestic chemical manufacturing. Governments now treat patient care as a matter of geopolitical strategy. The standard bottle of pills on a nightstand is the quiet end of a global assembly line. Behind its simple plastic cap operates a massive, silent infrastructure. Every day, thousands of chemical synthesis plants, analytical testing laboratories, and sterile formulation facilities coordinate across hemispheres. This network relies on continuous synchronization between international transportation routes, maritime ports, customs agencies, and automated digital inventory systems, all verified by strict inspection systems. It is a machine designed to be invisible. When this global coordination operates perfectly, it generates the quiet certainty of a stocked pharmacy shelf, a system so reliable that its complexity is completely forgotten. Modern medicine depends on the flawless, unbroken continuity of this vast industrial grid rather than any individual pharmaceutical brand or neighborhood pharmacy. Today, every prescription is a silent vote of confidence in a fragile global network. As systemic pressures build, we remain critically dependent on an invisible pipeline we cannot control. The next severe shortage is no longer a possibility. It is an inevitability. Join the conversation in the comments. Every crisis begins as a crack, small enough to ignore, until it isn't.